So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, the Occult View, child. I'm sipping me some grape. I'm going to say some grape wine. And y'all know I don't drink, but I got me a little grape wine for this one. Let's just say I'm taking my own communion, and I had some chocolate with it. But let's have a little chat. I just took the dark. I call it the dark communion. That's above most people's pay grade because I got to talk about some things. I want to talk about a big, evil, manly face person in my family. And she is an aunt. I will not name her, but I'm going to be talking about her. And I'm going to be talking about her because, number one, she's problematic. Number two, she is a prototype. And number three, this prototype needs to be bred out of existence in the Black community. It needs to be bred out of existence, period. And no community should have to deal with this type of misery, evil, and toxicity. And the sad thing about all of this is that this woman had the unmitigated gall, not once, not twice, but three times, thrice, to be a mother. And she failed each and every time. Let's talk about it. Because, see, these types of prototypes are celebrated in the Black community, in the spiritual community. This prototype is celebrated, whether you know what's going on or not. So let's have a conversation. My aunt, who is one of the most disgusting people that ever walked the earth. I understand people have substance abuse problems. I understand things happen to people that can sometimes make them go off of their path. But usually, people that are balanced, they understand what's happening and they'll try to piece the, their lives back together the best way that they possibly can. But my aunt is a totally different story. She's possessed by several entities, not demons, but entities. And these entities have taken over her life. And these entities are called crack, and crack. Let's talk about it. And I know what you all are saying. How could you talk about your aunt like that? Well, because it needs to be talked about. Because again, like I said, she is a prototype that is constantly celebrated in the communities across the board. And that needs to be wiped out. We have to stop thinking that these people have power. We have to stop giving them power. And we have to stop accepting them. I don't accept this. And I will never accept this. And I don't give a fuck who it offends. My aunt, when she was pregnant with her first child in the mid 80s, 1985, 1986, this was the height of her crack addiction. Let's go down memory lane. And I'm putting this out into the universe because that's what I do. I'm the occult view. I'm putting this out into the universe and I'm directing it at her. Specifically, this energy is going to her. I have her picture right here. It's going to her because you don't send my mother text messages cursing my mother out, who is an elderly woman. This is my mother's younger sister. You don't send my mother text messages cursing my mother out. My mother told me something today. Let me tell you what really precipitated this and what really caused me to go down this path. My mother told me today, and I was like, I can never have a day when I see, what do you have, whatever you want to call it, a wizard or a witch or a sorcerer or, a person that is involved in spiritual stuff. We never have a day off. We're always reversing, sending shit back. I can never have a day when I can just chill. I was having a good day. I went out. I went to a function today. I was having fun. I had a good day. Come back home. I wanted to tell my mother, about my day. And she starts telling me this shit. She said, well, I didn't want to tell you nothing. But last week I got a text message. Well, this is how it went down. My mother saw someone at a function a while ago. And the person that she saw was a relative of my cousin, my aunt's daughter, on the daughter's father's side. Follow me now. See, my aunt was such a disgusting, diseased person when she was on crack. She was in the streets having sex with multiple men. And my mother saw someone from that family that is suspected to be the family of my cousin, who I'm getting ready to tell you about. So my mother was talking to this person, and she mentioned that, well, I think my niece is related to you via my sister, the crackhead aunt that I'm referring to. So that, he was like, whatever, basically. So my mother saw him again. And he told her, I thought you were drunk when you told me that. And my mother said, I don't drink. And my mother is not a drinker. So after that, he saw this person who's related to my cousin. I hope you all are following me. He saw my aunt, my cousin's mother, and mentioned to her, she and my mother, my aunt and my mother are not on speaking terms. He mentioned to my aunt what my mother said. Maybe some days later, my mother gets a text message from someone saying, you wicked bitch. You had no right to tell him that. Now, I can understand her being upset in a way, but then when I really think about it, hold up, bitch. That was you out there in the street, reckless with your diseased body. Everyone knows that my cousin is related to that family. The cousin in question that I'm referring to is a girl. She's a woman now. She's almost 40 now. She's 37-ish, I believe. When my cousin was born, first of all, her birth was in the context of being either bitten by a cobra or clawed by a bear. Either way, however she was born, she was going to be messed up. Because her mother, my aunt, had an STD, which they now call STIs. I believe she had chlamydia and gonorrhea. So she could not give birth through the what do they call it? The vaginal canal or something like that. Because if she did, my cousin would have been born blind. So they gave her a C-section. But lo and behold, even with the C-section, my cousin was still messed up. But we didn't know it. Now remember, this was in the 80s. This was in the 1980s. We didn't find out, my family did not find out until much later that my cousin was suffering with cerebral palsy because of all of the crack that was pumped into her system via the monster that she calls a mother. And we're supposed to celebrate this? We're supposed to sit back and do the Christian duty. Oh, we got to forgive her because God says forgive her. No, we don't. No, we don't. That's why I can't stand that religion. My cousin has cerebral palsy, but she's made a wonderful life for herself despite that. She's married. She has a wonderful job. She's a high-ranking official in the government. She's doing pretty well for herself for someone with a physically debilitating mobility problem. And do you know, instead of her mother being proud of her, she has done everything to try to destroy that young woman out of jealousy and hatred. She doesn't even speak to her daughter. We didn't know that my cousin had cerebral palsy. She would have these crying fits, and we didn't know why. We didn't know why she was crying all the time. I was a child, so I had no control over this, but I do remember what I saw. And my cousin was crying all the time. I felt so bad for her. She was always crying, and we didn't know why. A lot of that was the crack, and it was the fact that she had cerebral palsy. Because when this bitch was giving birth to her, she had diseases. And then, I'm not finished yet. She had the unmitigated gall. Not only was she on crack, not only was she diseased, she left her baby girl in the hospital. Let me back up for a moment before we even got my cousin home. And this is what was, and my grandmother that I always talk about, this is what destroyed and ultimately shortened my grandmother's life. When those people called my grandmother from Washington Hospital Center, I believe it was Washington Hospital Center here in DC. When those officials called my grandmother, because my grandmother died a year later, when those people called my grandmother, and told her that my aunt had left. Wait a minute. Let me pull this bitch's picture back up because I ain't done with you, bitch. Now come back up here. When they told her that my aunt left her daughter in the hospital, when they told my grandmother that, I'm sorry, I got a little sidetracked. When they called my grandmother and told her, your daughter left her daughter in the hospital that she just gave birth to. Yeah, so she can go get some more crack. My grandmother was devastated. That really disturbed her. And that contributed to the massive heart attack that took her out a year and a half later. And suffice it to say, when my grandmother died of that massive heart attack, this crazy bitch jumped through the front door glass of our family home because the front door was partially glass and she jumped through it. And I'm not going to really say what I wish would have happened to her. You all can use your own imagination. And yes, I wish that. Then she had another child, a boy, that she gave away to her father's mother. Her father's mother. So her grandmother on her father's side. Then she had another child in 2003 who's doing porn on OnlyFans. And who has developmental issues. She's not physically disabled, she's mentally disabled, all because of the entity of crack, and crack. She has been on crack for the past 50 years. And I know what you all are saying because the bitch is 60. Well, that means she was on crack when she was 10. Well, she damn near, she might as well say she was. She was on crack when I was a little boy. And that was in the early 80s. She was on crack then. But when you text and call and harass my mother, I have a serious problem with that. See, people think I'm a joke. Let me. People think I'm a joke. The level of evil that I can conjure in my being would probably get me locked up if people could see what was inside of my mind. And I'm not talking about no physical violence. You feel what I'm saying? Why are people like my aunt? This prototype is celebrated in the Black community. Then she has the unmitigated gall to be on Facebook. I'm looking at her Facebook right now. She has the unmitigated gall because, a lot of crackheads, especially a lot of crackhead Black women who supposedly get off crack. And this is no disrespect to Black women. I'm talking about crackhead Black women. They get off crack and then they try to find Jesus. And because that religion is so backwards and disgusting and misinformed, they allow them to extend their brutality and abuse, that abusive personality that they had when they were on crack, that continues. And that God in the Bible gives them the authority, or so they think, to continue that brutality. You know how you can play those little games on Facebook? She has the unmitigated gall to talk about or to play this game saying there's a Bible verse for everyone. See, this is their pattern. They destroy lives, they try to destroy people, and then they want to turn to Christianity and God. Well, I'm sorry, but it doesn't work like that. Those Bible verses will not protect you from people like me. As a matter of fact, they will make things worse for you because of people like me. Because I'm a different type of spiritual being. Listen to this. There is a Bible verse for everyone. Read yours. This is what she posted on her Facebook page and playing those little games. Don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Isaiah 41:10. So now I get it. She's trying to turn to Christianity. She's trying to turn to God. But the thing is, that God is fake. That God is fake. And your prayers will fall on deaf ears, my dear. And there will be none to extend mercy or a helping hand to you. Instead of you praying, I'm sorry, not praying, instead of you hoping and being grateful and hoping every day that your cancer does not return, you are sitting around fucking with my mother because my mother told the truth. My mother's a Capricorn and my aunt is a Cancer. She's dealing with the shadow self. Cancer and Capricorn. My mother told the truth. And this is nothing against Cancers. This bitch is just one fucked up one. My mother told the truth about you and your daughter. And there was no malice there. But you want to hide the truth because you don't want people to know who you really are. You don't want people to know that when you were 36 and 37 on crack, that you were having inappropriate relationships with underage boys up and down Georgia Avenue. But you want to call my mother a wicked bitch? And that's no allege. Those are facts. Because one of the guys and a lot of the guys I went to school with. But you want to call my mother wicked, right? You left your daughter in the hospital so you could go and smoke crack. But you want people to believe that my mother is wicked? Let's look at this. Let me look at this bitch's picture. You want people to believe that my mother is wicked? Your father, because she and my mother don't have the same biological father, but her father molested my mother. Her biological father, who was my mother's stepfather, molested my mother, and I don't know, but there's a possibility he might have done the same thing to you and your other sister. My mother's other sister, none of them speak to each other. There's nothing but division and chaos between them. But you want to say that my mother is wicked when you came from a wicked man who was a child molester, who was a pervert, and you are the prototype of who he was. You are an extension of who he was. Because you basically were doing the same thing. The only difference was, Auntie Dearest, you were doing it under the guise of, I'm on crack. One of my other aunts, who's no longer with us, she was on crack too. But I tell you one motherfucking thing. That aunt, she was a good fucking mother. She wasn't perfect, but she was a good mother. And she did the best that she could do. She didn't leave her children in the hospital. She may not have always showed up when she was supposed to, but she showed up when she had to. And I know that may not make sense. The point that I'm trying to make is this. Sometimes we have to just understand that a person is a rotten, disgusting, despicable, dishonorable person. And they don't deserve any respect, they don't deserve any frequency, and they don't deserve any life force. And for this particular aunt, you don't deserve any life force, you don't deserve any frequency. What's waking you up is not the real God. What's waking you up every day is the entity that you've been worshiping for the past 50 years. It's called crack. And crack. and more crack. But you want to call my mother wicked, a woman that left her own child in the hospital so she can go and get more crack. A woman who abandoned all three of her children practically for crack. But you want to call my mother wicked, right? Bitch, are you crazy? Bitch, are you crazy? I had to get this off my chest. And the conversation that I had with my mother was a lot more heated. I said a lot more in that conversation than I'm saying in this one. But this is the type of shit that's celebrated in our community. And they allow them to slither their way into the church and think they can pray that entity away. You can't. You cannot pray it away. Your prayers fall on deaf ears. So this prayer that you posted on your Facebook page, there is a Bible verse for everyone. Don't be afraid, but you are afraid. According to your youngest daughter, you are afraid. You're in your room at night wailing and making all types of noises. You are afraid because you're being afflicted by the entities that you have been serving. And now they're talking to you. They have manifested in your life. They've taken root. And now they want payment. They want answers. And you think by smoking weed and drinking beer now, she didn't graduated from the crack. Downgraded from the crack. So now she smokes weed and drinks beer and smokes cigarettes. Well, she always smoked cigarettes. There's nothing wrong with smoking cigarettes. But she has a very weak immune system. You're very weak. My mother is powerful. You're no match for my mother. Even though my mother pisses me off sometimes too, that's still my mother. But you're no match for her. You're right. My mother is wicked. But wicked is not always a bad thing. Sometimes wicked is necessary. I'm not talking about being a bully. I'm not talking about harassing people and stalking people. I'm not talking about that type of wicked. I'm talking about being wicked to the point that people know if you fuck with them, they're going to open up a can of worms that they will not be able to close. I am wicked myself. I am very wicked, and I am very proud to be wicked. Because we're living in the world of polarity. Sometimes I make videos speaking positivity, but then sometimes I have to come and do things like this. And I have to do things like this because you have to address things like this. If you attack my mother, you are attacking me essentially. And I'm going to deal with you in my way, in my own way. I'm going to put it out into the universe. And suffices to say, the little prayer that she put with her picture on it on Facebook, it looks like an obituary because you are dead deep down inside. You are dead. She had a wonderful husband, Jamaican guy that she married. But you're calling my mother wicked because remember, you all don't know, but I lived with her. She and I lived in our family house together for a short period of time until I had to move because I had to get away from this psycho deranged crackhead bitch. I had to get away from her. And when I was leaving, she said, I'll come over and make some barbecue chicken for you. And I said in my mind, no, you won't, bitch. This was back in 2000. No, you won't. I'm not inviting you to my house. No, you won't. She had a wonderful husband. You know what she would do? Now, this was back in the 90s. You know what she would do? As soon as her husband left for work, she was bringing men in the house that we were living in. It was our family house. My other aunt owned the house and we paid her rent. My other aunt, she didn't live there. She was the owner, but she didn't live there. She and her husband were the owner. They didn't live there. But we were tenants there, me, her, and at the time, her father, my step-grandfather, the child molester, he was living there. And there's no alleging in that. But as soon as her husband went to work, she was bringing tricks in the house, having sex with him, and having sex with them for fish sandwiches. She was so desperate for food, she would suck penis for fish sandwiches and would say, I don't mind giving up a little pussy for food. I don't mind sucking dick for fish sandwiches. This was her. I'll suck your dick for a fish sandwich. That was her. She represents the lowest form of human depravity. But you are calling my mother wicked? You're right, my mother is wicked. And so am I, bitch. So am I. And these Bible verses cannot protect you from my wickedness. They cannot protect you, and they will not protect you. Because there's nothing in you or activated in you that represents divinity. You're not a witch. You're not a wise woman. You're a crackhead. Even though you don't smoke crack anymore, you're still a crackhead. You still have the stench of crackhead on you. You still have that stench on you, and you will never remove it. And that is why you will continue to sit over in that apartment in Silver Spring, Maryland, and rot. You lost your car. You had a car. You lost your car. You don't spend time with your grandkids anymore. You were making money babysitting them. Yeah, you got to pay this bitch to watch her grandkids, of course. You don't have a relationship with neither one of your daughters. Your son, I guess he deals with you whenever. You are the personification of the lowest form of human depravity and the personification of a universal cosmic curse that is afflicting you in multiple timelines. Because you have done so many fucked up things in the innerverse, in the omniverse, and the universe. And that is why you're fucked up. So you're right. Maybe my mother is a wicked bitch, as you said. But she will always be that towards you. And everyone you turn to will always be that way towards you. Because remember what I said. All of your prayers will fall on deaf ears. There's no one listening. Your Bible verses have no power and dominion over people like me. They will not help you. Your God and your Savior is crack and cancer. Those are your only two gods right there. Those are your only two choices. And let me say this as a disclaimer. This is only about her. This is not about anyone else. This is about her and the people with this mindset, because this needs to happen. This type of power and this type of reversal needs to be sent out into the universe against people like her. You will not harass my mother. You will not do that, because what's going to happen next, you don't want to even dream about that. Nor do you. So you keep saying those Bible verses over the family that you think, what are you reading? Psalms? What is it? Psalms 109? I can reverse that because I have dominion to reverse that. I'm anointed. I come from an anointed line. Remember, you and my mother have different fathers. My real grandfather was a minister. Your father, bitch, on the other hand, was a pedophile. like you. And a creep like you. Just like when you were having sex with Dolphus's son in our family's backyard, and his son was underage. So, like I said, the next time, bitch, that you want to call my mother wicked because she told the truth about your decaying, rotting corpse, the next time you want to call my mother wicked, you better go look in the mirror. You better go look in the mirror. You're looking sicker and sicker. Then you had the unmitigated gall to come up to your brother's business where he sells food, thinking that you were going to be welcomed with open arms. And everyone that came in contact with you that day said, she looks awful. And you do. And you will continue to look fucking awful. And I will continue to rejoice in your awfulness. You mean absolutely nothing to me. The universe don't want you, the omniverse don't want you, and the innerverse don't want you. You are a ghoul. You are a ghoul. You are not deserving of love. You're not deserving of respect. And you can make up whatever little story in your schizophrenic mind to make yourself feel better about the circumstances of the reality that you created for yourself. You cursed yourself when you left your baby daughter in the hospital so you could go and find crack. You cursed yourself with that. So these are the curses that the universe is delivering to you through me. Disease, destruction, unhappiness, instability, and ultimately perishing. And that is what I'm putting out into the universe. Since you said my mother is wicked, I'm going to show you how wicked I am. See, my mother's not really wicked. I'm the wicked one. I'm the wicked one because I have no feeling. I have no respect. I have no remorse. I have no compassion for any woman who treats her own daughter the way that you've treated your children. You left your daughter in the hospital like she was nothing. What type of rotten person would do that? And you and the black community wants us, the spiritual community wants us to respect bitches like this? And then the women that are real mothers, you want to attack, stalk, and harass them? But this is what you want to respect? I was reading her Facebook post. She talked about, oh, a friend of mine I was talking to, bitch, you shouldn't have anybody that's friends with her, anybody that co-signs anything that she does, you're going to be cursed along with her. She hates her children. She hates herself because her father hated her. You know what her father told me before he died? He said, Seer, do not let her come to my funeral. Her father rejected her because she was an embarrassment. She was a low-level, depraved embarrassment. Excuse me. But you want to call my mother wicked because she told the truth about you. You're filthy. You're dirty. You have no conscience. No person, especially a woman, a mother. You're not a mother. You're a monster. You're a monster. And I hope that you relive all of the guilt and everything and all of the misery that you have caused everyone else, especially your daughter who has cerebral palsy till this day and other illnesses that she has because you couldn't stop smoking crack. But they want us to forgive and celebrate this. I want to give a shout out to all of the mothers out there who stick with their children, who stick by their children no matter what, who love their children no matter what. Who don't abandon their children in hospitals after they're born, who protect their children at all cost. Do you know what could have happened to my cousin had my grandmother not gone and got her? They could have put my cousin in some type of institution or anything, and this rotten, diseased bitch would not have cared. She would not have cared. But you're talking about my mother is wicked? You want to talk about my mother being wicked and you want to text my mother talking about my mother is a wicked bitch? No, no, my mother's not a wicked bitch, but I can be one. And that is why I speak these things over your life, Auntie dearest. And there will be no one that can help you. Those Bible verses cannot help you. They are not effective, especially coming from you. You think because you have mom and daddies, my great grandparents, that's what we called them. You think because you got mom and daddy's Bibles, you think because you stole their Bibles, you think that reading those big gigantic Bibles, you think that reading that is going to some kind of way have an effect on someone? How can it have an effect on someone when you're the one losing? You lost your car. You don't have any money. You have no willpower. Your children don't speak to you. She came up to my uncle's business on a scooter. Not a scooter that you sit in, but the kind that you scoot with your foot. A scooter and a helmet. This is a 60-year-old woman because she's so broke and broken. She's 60 years old. She's been here for damn near 100 years. And you can't do any better than that? But you want to talk about my mother? My mother is far from perfect. I've talked about my mother on here before. But bitch, what you not gonna do? Bitch, what you not gonna do? What you're not gonna do is think that you gonna fuck with my mother and think there won't be repercussions for it. But see, I don't work in the flesh like you do. I work in the spirit. See, I work in the spirit. See, what I'm doing right here, I'm working in the spirit because we have to shut down these types of people. It's not just about my aunt, it's about the prototype or the archetype, rather, of this type of person that is being pushed on us and pushed out into the universe. We have to stop them, we have to break them, and we have to get rid of them. Because they are a danger to civilization. This woman is a danger to civilization. She is a threat to decent mothers everywhere. She is a threat. She's not a liability, she's a threat. And she can and will be stopped spiritually. See, I don't deal with people in the flesh no more. No, I deal with them in the spirit. Sometimes you got to deal with them in the flesh, but I'm dealing with her in the spirit. Because dealing with her in the flesh, that's her realm. But she don't know nothing about the spiritual realm. That's why she's over there scared at night in her apartment. She's scared to be in there by herself. I know all about it because I can see it. And remember, I've spent the night at your house before, 4 years ago. You were scared and couldn't sleep at night, up and down, up and down. That's that entity of crack that's talking to you. You've created a tulpa by smoking all that crack. See, what a lot of crackheads don't understand, you have created an entity. You've given all of your energy to that. You have breathed, you've given it the breath of life. You've breathed life into that entity. And now, when you think you stop smoking it, that entity is still created. It's a tulpa. There are good tulpas and there are bad ones. And this tulpa is sucking you dry, Auntie dearest. So instead of you worrying about what my mother told somebody who could be related to your daughter's father, you need to be worried about that entity that's still sucking you dry. That's why you ended up with cancer. And that's not giving medical advice. And then you have the unmitigated gall to still be smoking cigarettes when you don't have any spiritual protection against the effects of nicotine. See, there are people that can smoke cigarettes, but their spirits will protect them. But there's no spirit protecting you. You think that, where is it? You think that Isaiah 41:10 is going to protect you. It's not. Isaiah 41:10 is not going to protect you. You say, don't be afraid, but you are afraid. You say, don't be dismayed, but you have been dismayed. And your God is crack. Your God is destruction, poverty, and depravity. And there is no strengthening you because you are dead. And you can't raise the dead. When you're dead, you're fucking dead. Now, this is my wickedness. My mouth is wickedness because I have the power of life and death in my mouth, in my tongue. And I don't speak nothing over you but destruction and misery because that's what you want for everyone around you. Beware of this archetype, ladies and gentlemen. Do not let them in your life. Do not let them babysit your kids. Do you know that she had the unmitigated gall to have had at one time a mini babysitting business? And she was awful to those children. She had the unmitigated gall to have a babysitting business. This type of person should never be anywhere near children. Someone that left their child in the hospital after she gave birth to that child to go and find crack should never be around anyone else's child. And I'm putting that out as an all points bulletin. Do not let this woman watch your children. She is dangerous, she is diseased, and she is capable of doing anything. And on top of that, she has had inappropriate contact with underage boys when she was an adult. So if you want to talk about being wicked, we can have a whole conversation about this all night. Because I'm strong, I'm wired, and I have clarity about you. This archetype has to go. This archetype has to go. We will no longer tolerate this in any community. Anyway, this is the occult view. I just had to come out and say this because I think people need to hear this. You don't have to accept your crackhead aunties and uncles or crackhead people around you, who are possessed by those entities, you don't have to accept them. You don't have to accept them. Even if they get off of it, if they are still showing signs of that entity being there, you don't have to accept them. You can rid them out of your lives. And then they have the unmitigated gall to run to Christianity to try to get. Are you crazy? That's not going to help you. It's not. I see so many crackheads running to Christianity. Well, why weren't you? Well, here's the thing. Why weren't you running to it when you were smoking crack? But now all of a sudden, you want to run to Bible verses. You know why my aunt is running to Bible verses? Because those entities are tormenting her. That's why she's running to Bible verses. Because she's afraid to be by herself. She's tormented. She can't sleep at night. And bitch, you should never be able to sleep at night for what you did to your children, especially your oldest child, my cousin that you left in the hospital. You should never be able to sleep at night. You're a monster. And I would say it to your face and I would say it on your grave. And I'm putting that out into the universe. Don't fuck with me. Anyway, this is the occult view. If you have an issue with what I said, unsub. Because sometimes life is not always peaches and cream. I'm a real occultist and I'm a real spiritualist. And I'm not going to tell you that everything is peaches and cream. Your family can be the worst enemy. Your family, you be thinking people throwing stuff at you that's just around. No, it's these niggas and bitches in your family. Like this rotten bitch right here. Anybody that would leave their child in the hospital to practically die is a rotten, degenerate bitch. And they don't deserve the life force. You're not alive. She's not alive. Some people may be here, but they're not alive. That's a whole nother video. She's not alive anymore. She doesn't know that she's dead. She died a long time ago, and she's been replaced by that entity. And that entity wants to take over everything inside of her. That's an entity. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.